be remarkable, right? Like have people be like, I like this so much that I'm going to talk about it. We were in the opening titles to Stranger Things. One of our effects was kind of used in the glow that was going on behind the red letters and stuff. And the designers for it just like name dropped us in kind of an industry blog, and we're like, what? That's amazing. Their PR department like got us a quote and stuff. And so it's on our homepage. It's like, we were looking for good natural lens flares. Of course we used lens distortions. They're the best ones out there. There's a really cool story that's happened multiple times. There's this YouTuber called Peter McKinnon from Canada. He's got like, I don't know, a couple million followers or something now. He's like the most gregarious guy, teaches people how to do photography. You've probably heard of him, haven't you?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So like he gets paid by other apps to talk about them. And then he talks about us as like the app that he actually like really likes to like make his video less like a commercial. When you have stuff like that happen, you're kind of like, if you're just so good that people talk about it, like that's a good strategy.
Let's get started by introducing yourself and telling us just a little bit about your business and where it's at right now.
Sure. My name is Craig Nashleanas, one of the co-founders of a company called Lens Distortions. And we basically like to say, like, in a world of increasing superficiality and like drowning in content, we help tons of people make really nice content. Content with meaning, content with good aesthetics, content with good design. Things like that. And so we do that basically two ways. We have a pro side that's like our web platform, and we have a mobile app that is for kind of anyone creating content. Been at it for like 10 years, coming up on 10 years. The mobile app's been fortunate to have millions of downloads sort of worldwide. Recently featured as the app of the day by Apple in the US, which is kind of like the pinnacle that every app developer hopes for. So that's really cool. On the pro side, like just really cool projects that we've been a part of, from every kind of like major Hollywood studio to streaming services, Netflix, HBO, Disney, luxury companies, car brands, kind of you name it. Like we found our stuff in it, and so that's really cool. But also just like thousands of independent creators, small agencies that were kind of an important part of their workflow for creating nice content for their clients.
What I think is, first of all, what I think is interesting about this is that some people that I talked to knew Lens Distortions, but did not know that it had any connection to Nebraska. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that you are not a venture-backed company. Is that correct?
Correct.
Did you ever raise any amount of money?
No.
So that's pretty cool to hear that kind of. We get a lot of the like venture-backed, venture scalable business stories in Scale Omaha. And I think what's unique about this talk is going to be both, I think that you have the consumer side, because a lot of people we've talked to are really kind of on the B2B side, and also that you've done all of this while bootstrapping, while doing it without raising venture capital. So let's go back to kind of the beginning of this story of like, how did you find yourself starting an app? Did it start with the app? Did it start with the business side? What did that look like?
Yeah, so my business partner kind of got the inception off the ground, and we had been friends for a long time. We both had a video background, kind of grew up with cameras in our hands for our whole professional life, had been doing some sort of like video work. And in around 2014, he was a freelance video editor, had a client come to him and say like, hey, I want to do this type of effect that's usually done while you're shooting. Like during a video shoot, you hold a glass object in front of a lens and it creates this unique like blur look. And it's really cool, but we didn't do it during the shoot. Can you help us add it afterward? And he was like, I think I could do that. And so he starts tinkering and figuring it out, and kind of realizes like, no, this is actually pretty cool results. And I think if I just built this out further, I could make a product out of it. So he did, and like threw up a website, called the product Lens Distortions, and started hustling it on the streets of Vimeo, as I like to say. Back then, Vimeo was the cool place where all like the legit video creators hung out. YouTube was like, like home movies or something. Yeah. And so just like proverbially knocking on doors and being like, getting that into whoever's hands. And then people were asking him like, hey, can we do this for photography? So he was like, I should make a Photoshop version that's like compatible there. So he made that, and then he had the foresight to say like Instagram seems to be like becoming a thing. And I say that like half jokingly, but it really wasn't that big of a thing yet. Definitely not what it is today. And
Do you know when that was?
2014.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. And so he made a mobile app, basically applied this one effect. It was very niche. It was sort of like, if in addition to editing and applying your filter in Instagram, you want to go into this other app and add this like cool glass blur overlay, you can do that. And so that was that. And we were friends for a long time. I was starting to do some business consulting after working at an agency and kind of do like operations and marketing. So I was like, hey man, let's work together on whatever you're up to. And so he let me start tinkering on the marketing, and that went really well, and better than either of us thought. And so we just kept going.
What were you doing as far as marketing in the early?
I mean, like ads were a instrumental part of us getting off the ground.
In the App Store or
So no,
social?
we basically did no advertising on the app. And so we sold stuff to video creators. We were selling like these cool blur effects to video creators. And so we basically had to have like the coolest videos possible. So we made really cool videos about our pro products, and then like did like Facebook ads and stuff like that, and just got the word out. It was kind of like in startup terms, like vitamin versus painkiller. It was like a really fancy vitamin that we were like, you want this. This is amazing. And
Yeah.
people were like, we do want that. That is going to like make our videos better. And so that was kind of how it started. And in the early days, the app just sort of existed. Like we weren't putting a lot into it. We weren't marketing it. We weren't building a ton of new features. It was just kind of out there organically, getting downloads. People thought it was cool. People who were looking for ways to do more stuff and like get that edge on their photos liked it. But for a long time, the app just kind of existed, and we were really focusing on promoting the pro side. And I guess just to kind of tie a bow on that, like, so I took over marketing, and he had a bunch of more product ideas. So he just built out a bunch more video effect products, a bunch more same ones for photo, and then we added those to the app. And then kind of expanded into other areas of video assets and content creation stuff as time went on. And we can talk about that. But
So now talk a little bit about that. I know that there's like quite a bit of difference between, they're complementary, but there's a difference between like what that consumer side of the like the app is versus the pro side. We kind of alluded to it, but do you want to explain a little bit more about what that actually is?
Sure, yeah. So, on the pro side, which is our website, which today is just a platform where people can go get access to visual effects, sound effects, music, and like color products. That is sort of what I would say I like to say we create really high-end ingredients that we give to professional chefs who are video editors to go edit with and create with in their own kitchen, if you will. The mobile app is like, we're creating the kitchen too, and we're putting all the ingredients in there and kind of trying to hold your hand so that you can't fail. Like you can do stuff efficiently, you can make really nice stuff without necessarily knowing what you're doing. And so one is sort of like the professional wants the flexibility, like just give me the ingredients, I know what I'm doing, and then the just kind of everyday creator is like, I want to get awesome stuff and I want to do it quickly.
Was there ever a time where it felt like you needed to focus on one or the other, that the other was a distraction, or?
Sure. I mean, what's interesting about that is in the beginning, I would say we just focused on the pro side, because on the pro side, we were selling $100 products, $400 products, things like that. On the app, we were selling, in-app purchases $3 at a time. So the margin was way bigger on the pro side. The cash flow was there. And so you had money to invest in ads, you had margin to like keep putting back into more products. And the app kind of was like, you couldn't justify investing in advertising, and you couldn't invest heavily in like kind of building it out from its own like bootstrapped cash flow, because it just wasn't super big at the time. And so we were just like, this is cool, it exists, people are happy, it does what it says it's going to do. We'll let the app just kind of do its thing. Anytime we create a new product on the pro side, we'll update the app. But really, we're kind of putting all of our we built the pro business first, for sure, and just sort of always had the app there. But what's cool is that that was collecting users along the way, just sort of organically,
Yeah.
And sort of the reason that they both became businesses in their own right was this cool effect that I call the shrapnel effect. So we were investing heavily in the pro side, and we were making really cool ads for the pro product. It was driving people to our website. And then they'd get there and they'd be like, this is really cool. And then maybe like, I'm not a pro, like I can't do this, or like I can't afford that. But then there's like a thing at the bottom, it's like, download our free app. And so we got tons of users from coming to our website off of a professional ad for like the pro product, but they would download the mobile app. So that was just snowballing users over time, even though we weren't even directly focusing on it.
I think that's an interesting dynamic because a lot of times people talk about like product-led growth, where it's like you offer something free up front and then try to like upsell something later. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the way we always kind of thought about it was the app was like a kind of a free brand builder. Uh-huh. So it wasn't exactly like you're creating a free account on our website to then get upsold. It was like sort of like there's a free onboarding into our brand ecosystem. And we always saw it as like being at every step of the creator journey. So you've got a 10-year-old kid with an iPhone who downloads our app. Then they think it's pretty cool. And when, they're 11, they purchase the in-app purchase, or, they could be 25 and it's not like for kids, but you sort of get to grow with them. Like they get the app for free. They buy an in-app purchase. They buy all the in-app purchases. They like it. Then one day they kind of graduate to the pro business. So someone who, and this is the story of creators today. Like, I mean, I'm like came from when you kind of had to be a nerd to be like a content creator. Like I was like editing graduation videos in high school. Like no one's doing that now. It's not cool. But like now it's like you have an Instagram. Turns out you take some cool photos. Then like, I don't know, Nike's like, hey kid, here's a bunch of money, make a photo for us. And then they're like, I'm a creator. And then like, it just sparks this thing where that's cool. And they end up, before you know it, 5 years later, they're like a filmmaker and they're making amazing ads and stuff. And so we kind of just like wanted our products to be at every part on that journey so they could build a trusting relationship with our brand. So
were there any challenges you faced in like figuring out how to make that cohesive, that journey where you were like, because like I imagine there's a bit of a tricky part of like, how does someone find out, like let's say they're using the app and they're like in that part of the ecosystem, like how do they get over to the pro side when there is kind of that need?
I would say that it's not as clean cut and romantic as anyone would hope it is. Uh-huh. It's kind of more like, the way billboard advertising works. You drive by a billboard and you're like, yeah,
it's
like
the brand that
Valentino's. I know about Valentino's. It's right there, and then later on you're like looking for a pizza place and you see it, right? It's sort of like that. Like you get this brand exposure, someone builds a relationship with the brand, and then later on they kind of know about it. And there were actually some problems where it like would cause confusion. We would market a pro video product and then someone would be like, how do I do this in the app? And we're like, no, you have to pay like $400 on the website to do that. You can't do it for $3 in the app. And then they'd leave a 1-star review and welcome to the world of reality. But
yeah. So from there of like, where's the pro side at now? Because you have a whole library of different types of assets and stuff. How'd you get from just those effects to where you're at now with that?
Yeah. It was all pretty like iterative, and we always had this like guiding light of like, we're only going to make stuff that we would use ourselves, that we're really proud of. We're not just going to opportunistically sort of like do classic line extension, like add another product to just keep building this out forever and ever. And so we made a lot of visual effects products, and we were like, we could make more, but we feel like we built kind of our best ideas and realized that there was like the products that we were making were really good for like the person who has to do every step of the process themselves. So there's like a lot more people who they're shooting the video, they have to edit the video, they have to do everything. And so our products were really well tailored for them, like with our visual effects. And we're like, there's no one making sound effects products that are like really well suited to the individual video creator. It was mostly for like a professional sound designer. So you'd have a massive catalog, it was very expensive. These people, they wouldn't know how to use it. So we just sort of said, like, I think there's a market opportunity that's stronger than making more of what we were doing by jumping into another category. And that, you got to figure out how to do that and meet people who are experts in that area. What was interesting about sound effects, so we were an effects company, visual effects. Let's just be an effects company in general. We'll make visual and sound effects. And then we very naturally, without even really saying, like, we're going to make music now. We said, like, hey, music would be helpful for our own, like, commercials. We would, like, need some musical type stuff. So we started making sort of like musical sound effects. And then we started making like simple music. And before we knew it, we were like, let's make music.
Yeah.
And that's also a lot more consumable. Most of the original products that we made, it's like, like you buy these products and then you could use them again and again and again and again. But with like video editing projects, you want to use a new music track for everyone. If you're doing wedding videos, like you want to give each client a unique track. If you're doing commercials, you need a track that's the right like vibe for that commercial. So making music made a lot of sense because every project needs it, and there's a lot of variety that people need. And then color was kind of the last piece. And that was kind of a commodity. Like everyone had solutions for coloring your videos, so we kind of stayed away from it. But we had people asking us like, "Hey, how do you do your color? Like, we want to do that." And we're like, "What we do is build solutions for people to like achieve what we do. So we should just do color, even though it's a commodity, and we'll do it in our own way. That's like not a commodity." And so we built like the most expensive color products in our industry that were also like courageously the most simple, because what most of them did was like overdid it. And so that's just an example of like, we're very convictional about like, we want to build stuff that's useful. We don't want to build stuff that's just like everyone's doing that, and so let's jump on the bandwagon. We're like, if there's 100 solutions already like that, we're kind of bored by that. And so we want to be like, where is someone not making something of value that creators need?
I think it's a really interesting kind of product cycle there, and like founder product fit like to the max, where you're like making these commercials to promote this thing, and then adding products that help you make those commercials to then promote the thing. And it's like this.
Well, and there was this thing where I started noticing every time we made a new product, we made a video for it. And we would always put music in the video. And so we would always go pick really cool music from like another site that licensed music. And we put these ads out there and it'd be like, buy our epic visual effects. And then we get a comment on it and people are like, what's the song? Where do I find this song? And I'm like, I'm not sending you to someone else's website to buy the song. So internally we just kept saying like, how do we make everything so that when someone comments on the video and says, this is cool for any reason, we can be like, yeah, and you can do it too. Like, here's the link. And it can always be a link to our own site. And so same thing, that was the same thing with the color. Like, how do we do your color? Like, here's a link. We're not going to tell you, just buy the product and you'll be able to do it. So sort of this comprehensive thing. And then I guess to kind of give you context, originally, like all the way up through 2020, the way we were doing this was kind of like medium tech. And I call it medium tech because we had to know how to do the technical stuff to create like these assets for a video creator. But the way that we were distributing them was not software. Like, we had an e-commerce website, and then someone would like watch videos about a product, decide they want to buy it, give us $150, and then get a link to download like 100 files. And then they just have the files on their computer. It was like we weren't giving them software or a plugin or something like that. And then in 2020, we introduced a subscription plan and kind of over time reworked the website to where you're getting access to a platform of music and effects and things like that you subscribe to and can download. And so there was kind of an evolution there as well.
Have you, how do you manage the fact that there's like all these different video editing ecosystems, like the Final Cut and DaVinci and Premiere? Does that affect your business at all? Or?
No, and that's one of the reasons that I think we always stayed on the professional side at the sort of ingredient level. Because there's basically three major platforms. Adobe makes one, Apple makes one, and there's another one called DaVinci Resolve. And you can make, plugins and stuff for them that like connect directly to them and offer your stuff right inside of there. But then you have to deal with upkeep and with, making sure that when the software updates, when each software updates that you are still compatible and stuff. And I think we've always just sort of been very sober and pragmatic about like, what is the technical debt of committing to something? When you start something, you have to continue doing it. What are customer expectations? If I launch something and take it away, that is like going to affect how people perceive us. And so brand trust has always been like a really big thing. So we like, if we're going to do something, we're going to do it. And so we've always just said that's a giant commitment to like build custom stuff to integrate with those places. But if we stay at the really high-end sort of ingredient level, then they're universally compatible. Any app can, any editor can take them to whatever professional app, and they can all use it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, especially now there seems like there's a proliferation of like all of these additional video editing softwares. I don't know if you've been noticing that. Like Mostly like web-based. I don't know how that will affect things, but
that's more tailored though for like informational content. So like you want to edit something like this, and it's not about like connecting with someone emotionally, where you're trying to get them to take an action, or like advertising, or just making like really cool cinematic YouTube videos or something. Those are kind of like about utility. Like, hey, anyone can edit a video. They can do it online. We'll use AI to like help you edit and things like that. I guess there's like communication video editing, and then there's like, all the way at the other end, like really true artist video editing, and there's kind of everything in between. So I think there's totally a place for that, and it makes sense that we're getting a lot of that. The people that we sell to are the ones that are like, I want to put every extra ingredient in that's going to make this perfect. Yeah.
I still use Premiere even for a video like this, just because I want those little extra things.
You use what you're used to, but what those new apps are doing are helping people, anyone, kind of be able to create video.
The AI stuff is like, I've tried to use it, but it's like not quite there yet. It's always like, why'd you make a cut there? That doesn't make any sense. And then I can't go in and fine tune it. Like, do you have any thoughts on like just like where that stuff's going beyond
like AI stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to pay attention to. I think that people will obviously find ways to use it. It's already being used in like interesting ways. And I just, the way I talk about it internally is like, at the end of the day, like we like serve customers, and we're trying to make stuff to make customers' lives easier. And so customers don't care if it's artificial intelligence that's giving them the solution. What they care about is automation. Do they get the solution without putting in the effort? Mm-hmm. And so I think there's tons of applications where like using AI is the best way to do that. I think there's other applications where it's like, you don't need a machine to learn this in order to, spit out a result. You can just figure out a way to like automate this with far simpler technology. I also think that like it does not matter how well you can automate things and perfect things to like eliminate the person from it. Like people like to create. That's like the creation process is a huge part. We still have fine artists. Like Photoshop has existed for decades now. People are still painting on canvas, So I'm not like worried about it, I think there's a lot of companies that should be, but like what we do is sell to the people who care about creating.
Right.
And so like we'll go down on the ship with them, like that's fine. But also we'll adapt along the way. Like that's what's cool is we have this one business that's like, we're giving you ingredients, and maybe you have an AI video editor and you're using our ingredients as part of your thing, And then on the other side, like we're paying attention and trying to leverage technology. And what's cool though too is like as an app developer, especially with Apple, they give you tons of great like starting points for making apps, right? So anytime they come out with new technology around like how their photo technology works or something like that, a lot of times they're opening up parts of that to app developers to leverage. So if there's a feature you like in a photo app, there's a decent chance that like they're using something that Apple gave them and then kind of building on top of that. And so in a lot of ways, by just having a product in the space and being on a system like Apple, we get to ride the wave of whatever's like, I guess what I'm saying is like, I would kind of be surprised if 5 years from now, that's a random number, but Apple isn't giving developers like AI related photo tools to use themselves. So in some ways, if you kind of like lag the pack a little bit, you just get it from Apple for free rather than having to like have the developers break their backs trying to like, create it from scratch, be bleeding edge. So
I didn't know that, I guess. But
I might be oversimplifying.
Yeah.
I mean, still the coolest stuff in apps right now is like stuff that people made from scratch.
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of really cool stuff that they're doing with their photo, and some stuff that doesn't really make any sense also.
Well, here's an example of that. Like background erasal has always been a thing that people want to do if they're like a restaurant and they want to take food photography or whatever. And now everyone's doing that. But like, I don't know if you noticed in the latest iPhone update, you can just hold and press on a photo and it like outlines a person perfectly. And you're like, cool. So like somebody spent 6 months working on that 2 or 3 years ago to put in like the bleeding edge feature in an app. And like Apple hasn't given that to us yet. It's just in their app, but it's a matter of time. And so everything that is amazing on day one is like a year later kind of a commodity. Again, oversimplification, but that's how like the tech world, especially photo apps and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. I'm going to give you guys a chance to ask questions if anyone has any questions. Oh, Andrew.
How do you get so much done with such a small team? Like, how do you prioritize? How do you figure out like what are the most important things that we should be focusing on right now?
Yeah. Yeah, that's like always the question, right? And that's sort of our job as the founders and the leaders to ask, like, what is the most important thing that we should be working on right now? And when you have kind of two products in one, you sort of are always pulled between the two, right? Of like, yeah, do I focus on this one or I focus on this one? And I was candid about in the early years, we just sort of focused on the one that made the most sense, the one that could cash flow, the one that could fund the whole thing. And I think if you're in a similar situation, that is definitely the right answer. But, now it kind of ping pongs a little bit, honestly. Like, I mean, we have enough people kind of moving the ball forward on stuff that the ball is always moving forward in kind of all areas. But from like a leadership and where are we going to strategically put our minds to like, what are we building next? Where are we trying to take this product or whatever? We kind of have to ask, like, okay, what are our current ideas for what we want next across everything? And what one seems like the most impactful for like customers and for the business? And we're going to kind of put our minds together on that. And so like an example of that is we have really cool stuff that we have planned for our mobile app. We kind of are making incremental progress on that right now while we jumped over and made a giant update to our website. We're wrapping that up, and then we'll kind of put all of our extra brain power back to some mobile app stuff. But also where we're going and kind of have been trying to skate towards is this idea of both platforms, like the mobile app and the pro platform, benefit from any asset development. So for a long time, like the app was just a photo app, and then the website was kind of serving video people. So it was like video effects and like audio effects and things like that. Well, you don't put those like on a photo. And so they were sort of separate. If we built something over here, it wasn't affecting this, and vice versa. Now what we're doing is building out the infrastructure in the mobile app so that it can benefit from all of the video assets that we have. So you can kind of think of like Lens Distortions, it owns and develops IP, songs and like effects and things like that. And then we distribute that IP through a web platform and through a mobile app. And so like we're building out stuff now for video editing and for like adding music and stuff. And then every time we make a new music track, it is, like upgrading the experience in both places. So the answer is just like, it's a struggle, and you're always basically saying no to cool stuff to try to do like the awesome stuff, and that is part of the bootstrap life, I think, is like, if you're saying we're not going to go out and get extra resources so that we can move faster, or like extra people so that we can grow bigger and move faster, then like you kind of always have to say, with our limited resources, what are we going to do? But I think that's part of the fun. I think it's fun to like, basically, I feel like we always just sort of like dance under like diminishing returns. Like we get to the point where you're adding more stuff and more people and more product lines and stuff, and it seems like diminishing returns, and you're just trying to squeeze out extra bit wherever you can. That's kind of boring. And so it's more fun when like everyone is highly engaged and everyone is like super high output. And we've just sort of stayed in that area more so than expanding as much as possible. Good question.
Was there ever a point where you considered raising money and decided not to, or was it just kind of not on the radar of the business plan?
Yeah, I mean, we never seriously talked about it. I mean, I've always heard the advice, like you either like go raise money or don't. Like you don't like kind of like think about it or try it. Yeah. And for us, it was like, again, we're really high conviction people, and we just never had like a point where we're like, the thing that we're building next is so big, and we gotta like get far enough ahead before we can actually release it to the world so it's, I guess, because we were always iterative, in the beginning, we weren't necessarily saying like, we're starting a tech company.
Right.
He made a product and was hustling it on the streets of Vimeo, remember? And then we're like, well, let's make another product. And then we're like, oh, we get like massive scale and leverage through like ad platforms and like how that works. And so it was just always incremental. And like, it's not out of the question. We could raise money someday if we're like, want to build something really big, really fast. But I think the creative freedom that you get with being self-funded is an important aspect of it. There are things we could do to like grow faster or be opportunistic and take advantage of things. Like if you wanted to build the biggest tech company in our space, like I have a different recipe for you, but we're like making a profitable one that's growing, and like we get to make stuff that we think is meaningful and not make stuff that it could exist, but we're like, we aren't really we don't think that needs to exist, you know? So.
Do you have like a community, I know you talked about your community of like artists or video makers, creators. Do you have like a community component that runs in parallel to your product to give them resources or connect them or really kind of allow them to share best practices in the space?
Yeah, no. We talked about it many times, you know. I think the moderation aspect of that, and you want to do it, you're going to do it well. Again, we're high conviction people. We weren't like, yes, we absolutely like, we're the people that want to do that. And we weren't like passionate, like, man, that, you know what people really need is like a community. I mean, they would benefit from that, but it just wasn't our conviction. And so, and I mean, honestly, just like moderating stuff like that, it's a lot of just attention, and we knew what we did best. I mean, like we're like artists, you know, and so we were not kind of saying like, how do we add any component to this that's gonna like get more people in? We sort of like, I mean, for a long time we had the same person managing like kind of like a more casual Instagram community. So we had, because what people do in our space is create, people would tag us when they used our app to create stuff, and then like we would repost it. And so there was a more organic community where it was like people celebrating each other's work. And honestly, there's probably like some missed opportunity in like teaching people how to do stuff. In the early days, we had an overview video for every product, so we would kind of include that. But the important and messy work of like genuinely building community, we just like never really waded too far into that. So you see really great companies doing it, you know, and having amazing companies or amazing communities as a result. And so if anyone wants to build a community with us, let me know. But
I think that's interesting. There's actually, have you ever thought about like leveraging communities that do exist of video creators or anything? Like I guess I'm assuming you have other marketing channels now besides just Facebook ads. Like what did the evolution of that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's every company now kind of basically, that's what influencers do, is they manage a community of people and you sort of get credibility through working with them. So we've done some stuff there, and like honestly haven't done a ton. But one of the reasons for that is like we felt like it was kind of this like disingenuous thing where people were just throwing money and like asking everyone to shout about them. But now we're to a point where like it's like advertising, people don't pay attention to that in the way that they do to like the people they're loyal to, and it's just like sort of what you have to do these days. And communities have grown so large, and these creators like will make interesting content about your stuff and kind of tell their community why they like it. And so you almost kind of have to do that. So it's a bigger part of what we're expanding. Does that organically
happen with your with Lens Distortions?
Oh yeah.
Because people are just like, I just see a lot of pro video creators that have YouTube channels where they teach other people how to do what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I can imagine that people just do it without you even telling them.
Totally. I mean, that was like kind of our, I mean, it was kind of like, I don't know, snooty a little bit, but that was our response to like collab requests for the longest time. They would be like, hey, I absolutely love your product. Here's all the stuff I like about it. Like, I'd love to, you know, to put it on my channel, and be like, yeah, we love that. We totally support it. Like, go for it, you know? And like, we didn't have the budget to, you know, be just like throwing money at every single one that came in. And a lot of people did. They did. Like, that was kind of our strategy, was like, be so useful and be so high quality that people like be remarkable, right? Like, have people be like, I like this so much that I'm going to talk about it. There's a really cool story that's happened multiple times. There's this YouTuber called Peter McKinnon from Canada. He's got like, I don't know, a couple million followers or something now. He's like the most gregarious guy, teaches people how to do photography. You've probably heard of him, haven't you?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So like he gets paid by other apps to talk about them. And then he talks about us as like the app that he actually like really likes to like make his video less like a commercial. So like Adobe, you know, everyone knows Adobe. They're like the biggest people in space. He did this YouTube video about like, that was paid for by Adobe, like why I love to use Adobe Lightroom on my phone. And he's like, and I also love Lens Distortions. And he shows off our app. We didn't have anything to do with that. And we're like, cool. So we're the like legitimacy factor in your paid programming for this. So when you have stuff like that happen, you're kind of like, if you're just so good that people talk about it, like, you know, like maybe that's a good strategy. But I think we just want that more. And So we'll expand on that more. It's definitely, it's just par for the course in marketing these days.
How big does your team look like now? Like, what? And is there more people on the product side than the marketing side? Is that?
Yeah. I mean, we're very product focused.
Yeah.
And so most of our team is software developers and like composers and like design and stuff like that. So we usually float between like a dozen and 15 people.
Yeah. That's just interesting. I've seen some companies, some big companies, like lay off huge portions of their customer service and like sales. Not so much their marketing, but like, and then use those resources to scale up their product and have some success with that. Of like, they seem to like just be resting on, oh, this is the product, and we're just gonna like push selling it really hard, and then now there's a bunch of competitors in the space that are just focused on product more and making a better product. And then you just be Adobe and just buy everybody that has better products. But
True story.
yeah, Teresa.
So in the beginning, you just referenced like seeing yourself in some big brands, big companies like Disney, Netflix, HBO. So can you talk about what that looks like? Like when you say we saw ourselves, like, did you know that your customers or like what?
Sometimes, definitely. I mean, like some of these people, like I'm talking to and putting together like a complex enterprise contract with them. And then sometimes, like, coincidentally, our team went and saw like the latest Batman movie that came out, and we got to the very end, and the end credits were like just covered in our effects, and we're like, those are effects, like no doubt about it, that's our stuff. But the interesting thing and kind of fun thing about the way our industry works is like, it's not like it said like Batman bought your effects. There's all these different like production companies and stuff and they're getting subcontracted to just do the visual effects on just the end. Like they weren't doing the visual effects for the movie. So it's some obscure name. Like it seriously is like, Dog Food Gorilla LLC bought your stuff, and that's who put it in there. And so it's kind of a pleasant surprise, or we hear about it. With music, it's obviously a lot more apparent, like if someone uses our stuff, but especially in the beginning, that early stuff, like we would see, or sometimes they would like tell us, like that's really cool. Like when people just like would name drop us. We were in the opening titles to Stranger Things. So like one of our effects was kind of used in the glow that was going on behind the red letters and stuff. And the designers for it just like name dropped us in kind of an industry blog, and we're like, what? That's amazing. And then we reached out to them, and they like their PR department like got us a quote and stuff. And so it's on our homepage. It's like, we were looking for good natural lens flares. Of course we used lens distortions. They're the best ones out there. So when stuff like that happens, you're like, oh, thank you. Like, where did this come from? And that's really cool. But one of our old sayings is like, the best effects are ones no one knows you added. And so if people are using our stuff really well, a lot of times we don't even know, if you make the best salt in the world, every restaurant in town might use it, but like, even if you made that salt, the food's savory, you're like, I hope this is my salt, but you don't know. And so sometimes it's very apparent. Sometimes I'm just like stumbling through our customer list and, looking and seeing like, oh, wow, I didn't know. Like we just did a big website update, and we were kind of just like shaking the trees and trying to like scrape together, hey, what logo should we put on the homepage? And we're like, oh, wow, like didn't realize they were using it. But so that's fun. It is really interesting that you can be in Omaha and make like an effect, and you can have a reputation where people go like, I want to put that in this movie in Hollywood or whatever it is. So it's cool. Good question. Thanks.
Sorry, this is two questions. Which of your categories, like I know you have music, you have the pro and you have the app side, and maybe there's others, but what's your fastest growing, would you say, category? And then the other question is, which is the most profitable out of your different offerings that you have?
Yeah. So for the longest time, it was the professional side. And like that was the fastest growing because it was the thing that we were focusing on like almost entirely. And then it was interesting, like during COVID, COVID wasn't too bad for us, but things kind of slowed down a little bit on the pro side. At first they sped up because everyone was like doing digital stuff, but then a lot of our customers were out of work. Like productions were shut down. LA wouldn't let people like do productions. New York wouldn't let people do productions. Maybe they were working with restaurants or whoever who was affected by it, so they didn't have clients. So that kind of like would slow down things a little bit. But interesting, like the mobile app really took off during that time. And there was some serendipitous stuff where we had released a lot, like we'd been building stuff for months before COVID and like released some really good new features. And so that kind of paired with, I think, people just experimenting, people looking for stuff, people being bored. Really like, it was interesting. It brought the mobile app up to where we were like, we need to like give this a lot of attention too. And so, but then, later on, sort of in COVID, we did a bunch of updates to our website. That's when we introduced the subscription. So then that kind of like took back off. And so really, I would say the pro side probably grows a little faster than the mobile app, but yeah, I mean, they're both meaningful businesses that are growing and that we're figuring out ways to grow even faster. And a lot of that's about product development. So it's sort of like, I think you get spurts of growth when you make new, interesting stuff in it. So good question.
Go ahead. Last one.
If you had institutional investors, they'd probably have a laundry list of metrics and reporting packages they'd want to see for managing the business. But without those types of investors, what are the types of things that you're paying attention to manage the business?
Yeah. So an interesting one for a bootstrap company is you just look at revenue, like, like sell stuff. You have to, right? And so that's always been a, primary thing. And then of course you're looking at like, what's our customer acquisition cost? I mean, our metrics were pretty easy in the beginning. It was sort of like fixed product development cost. We had very little overhead, like as far as like having the website and like hosting the website was kind of it. So then it was like, what does it cost to do product development? Then like, how much revenue is that bringing in? And then like, how much are we spending on advertising? And like, that's kind of it, And so you're looking at customer acquisition costs, lifetime value, revenue, obviously. And then when we started introducing subscriptions, you start to look at a handful more metrics. And so you're looking at churn, you're looking at ARR, you're in finance, all the major ones kind of at the top. But I think that you can get obsessive about lots of different stuff, but it also is kind of simple. Like, are the most meaningful metrics, like, especially when you're not trying to fit like a complex financial model, you're just trying to like grow and always have one year be better than the last one. It's like, are we retaining subscribers and adding new ones? Is our revenue growing? Which plans are most interesting? That's always kind of interesting. It's like, we just launched a new like creator plan on our website that's cheaper than any plan we've ever had before. So it'll be interesting to watch, like, does the next cheapest pro plan get less sales as a result of having, like, were there creators who were buying the pro plan because that was the cheapest option and now they'll go for this other one? So yeah. But like Warren Buffett said, if it doesn't work on the back of a napkin, it's probably not like a very good business. So that's how we kind of think about it, because we're not smart enough to do the complex financial stuff and not, don't have to. So.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Craig.
Yeah.
The last question we always ask is there any way that this community can help you?
Yeah, go download the app, press the 5-star on that, tell your friends about it. If you know anyone that's like a video creator, like point them our way. I don't know if I emphasized it that much, but like there's a lot of options for, I feel like, what we do now. But like our thing has always been quality and like a polished aesthetic, a tasteful aesthetic. And so like we're trying to make the stuff that like if you care about your stuff being the absolute best possible, like you're going to resonate with what we do. So if you know people who do stuff like that, they're a YouTuber who are trying to make the absolute like highest quality aesthetic YouTube, like hit us up. But also that app, like pay attention, because like anyone in this room could benefit from our app. Like if you're working on a startup and you need to put together like classically designed content that looks like a designer did it, like our app is going to help you do that. You need to promote happy hour at a bar, like it'll be good for that. Like again, if you care about the way it looks, that's what we're going for. So check it out.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks everyone for coming, and thanks Greg for coming again.
Thank you.